Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today it is time for some news. So two things have happened. First, game director Chilton has left the World of Warcraft team, and second, the Blizzcon schedule has been released. Now the con schedule is interesting because it often gives us quite a pointer as to what's going to be covered at the con. First though, let's talk about Tom. So he announced his departure from the WoW team in a lengthy blog post that went over his history in the company and the state of Legion. I think it's quite fair to say that he's left the game in a very good state. It's the best that it's been in for years, in my opinion, and certainly some of the, indicators that we've seen would suggest that is the case. Certainly, I think a better state than Warlords, and he's also left it in very good hands, with Ian Hazzikostas taking over his role as game director. It's kind of interesting seeing Ian's journey within the company. I think he started off as an encounter designer, but he slowly seems to have worked his way up to the point where now he is even before this, he was one of the head people of World of Warcraft, but I believe this is him kind of as the head developer for the game. I know that J. Allen Brack is there as the overall producer, but I think he's pretty much the head honcho now, which is kind of cool to see. Often, we do see quite a lot of talk whenever a big departure like this happens, and I normally don't cover it on the channel because I don't think it's the most relevant thing ever, but because some other things have happened, I may as well mention that Craig Amide also took a break. I believe he's still within Blizzard, and then Chris Metzen pretty much seems to have retired. I think he's in his early 40s. Now, from our perspective, as people who don't see what's going on inside Blizzard, it's often very tempting to try to correlate things where we can. I think it's a lot more satisfying to think that there's a big juicy reason for something happening rather than, it being something far more run-of-the-mill, a personal decision, someone wanting to try something a bit different, someone wanting to move because of family, all those other human things that just aren't really juicy reasons. I've seen a bunch of people say, oh, well, Tom Chilton gave the green light, the new legendaries, good riddance, fire him, and, it's unfortunate that we see, I think, such logical leaps happen when this stuff is being discussed. Now, all of that said, I think some of this might be a little bit different with Tom. At the risk of being slightly hypocritical, his post was called New Adventures, brackets, just down the hall. So yeah, he's going on a new adventure, but it's pretty damn close to where he's left. So he's still working at Blizzard, and I'm very keen to see what he's up to. Specifically, it seems like there was some sort of game project going on that he's going on to. Now, we don't know whether this is a new game project, a new IP within the company, or if he's moving and sort of being shuffled onto a role on one of the other teams, such as Starcraft, Diablo, Heroes, Overwatch, something like that, or if it could be a brand new project that's appeared in the company that needs the experience of someone who is, well, as experienced as he is. Blizzard announced Overwatch in 2014. At that stage, it was its first bit of new IP in years, though in fairness, Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone may as well be new things. Now, I would not be surprised if there was something else brewing inside the company. I've got to imagine that after years of heading up a massive team, the opportunity to move on to a team that is far smaller, that's in the pre-production sort of prototyping phase, which is where I think it's a lot more like there's a lot of creativity going on there, a lot of solving problems, working things out before you're actually just getting onto the grunt work of producing the content. I think that would be a breath of fresh air for somebody who has been pretty much managing such a live production for so many years. Now, what could it be? Well, look, it's really hard to guess. Overwatch is clearly in good hands already, though Overwatch is a brilliant shooter set in a world that seems to be far larger and more thought out than its actual in-game representation is. Perhaps Blizzard are looking to do something else within the Overwatch universe, given how the current Overwatch has really got that game's IP into people's hands. Who knows what's up with Starcraft and Diablo, especially Diablo. For some reason, I just doubt. It just would seem off to me, or odd, I suppose, or unlikely that he'd be moving on to like Diablo or Starcraft. Overall, it just does seem likely to me that there's maybe some sort of new project going on, that's something that's really new, really exciting, and is attracting some of the top talent within Blizzard. And it also can be the case that, if there's a big new project, you might want one of your more experienced people to shift over to that so they can bring that experience to the project, and I think stuff like that's kind of common within companies. And as for Ian taking the game director role, I think that's probably great. As much as Warlords was a rough spot, and he did catch some flack for that, I think he's a really talented guy, and there's absolutely no reason why he can't do really well in the role. I think it's also worth saying that the whole game development thing, it's a team game, right? And a lot of the things that we personally associate with these big names they're not just those people. It's a team-based industry, so just about everything comes about due to consensus. I guess it's easier from our perspective to just blame things on a specific person. I'm sure Brian Holinka says hello. But at the end of the day, it's almost certainly not the case. It's definitely not an accurate representation that, all the flack should go to these individual people. They just end up appearing as figureheads. They're the people who are forward-facing, but the words that they're saying, yes, I'm sure they're mostly their own, but they are the result of many, many different people, and I think any blame, etc., is sort of shared among all those people. I suppose finally, it's worth mentioning that Craig said that he wasn't leaving Blizzard, so I remember reading Craig's leaving blog, which was actually really an interesting read. Just a lot of what he was talking about was he was tired. It was quite a grind. I pretty much just ended up being quite the grind working in World of Warcraft, and while it was something that was, really passionate, it does get tiring, so maybe again it's a new challenge and a new thing is really what they're going for. Anyway, with that covered, let's talk about BlizzCon. So, what's interesting about this BlizzCon schedule is I don't see space for a major new announcement. Their time is split between many, many different things, with esports having a very large presence overall. So the opening ceremony is from 11 to noon, and then half an hour later we've got the Hearthstone What's Next panel, which lasts for 45 minutes, and then for the rest of that day on the main stage, we basically just have them going over each IP and doing a What's Next panel for that IP. Legion has an hour-long panel, so that will give them quite the opportunity to announce any new stuff that they might have. By that time, I would expect 7.1 to either be out or almost be out, and then their main focus of that panel being perhaps patch 7.2, essentially just giving us a look at the new content that's coming for the future of Legion and talking about how they're approaching sort of the general future of the expansion and the way that they do things. That's what I would personally expect. I don't think we will get a new expansion announcement. Legion's only been a few months. And as much as the nostalgia people seem to think otherwise, I'd be very surprised if we see any major legacy server news, even if we were to assume that Blizzard are planning on doing it at some stage. All that stuff went down in June, July. It certainly seemed like Blizzard weren't working in anything at that time anyway. So I'd imagine if they were to do that, it would pretty much be new work that would be happening probably now, I guess. But that all went down June, July. The WoW team were in crunch dealing with Legion since then, so unless there's a sub-team that's been spun out to deal with this problem, it just seems super unlikely to me that we'll get an announcement as far as these servers go. Maybe someone will do an offhand tease or something like that, and I think if we do get an announcement, it will probably be very, very early on. But that's really all that I foresee for World of Warcraft, to be honest. We've had quite a lot of good stuff, so I think it's okay that BlizzCon isn't just, a crazy World of Warcraft only sort of thing. Next, Overwatch has a What's Next panel. Dead keen to see what goes on here. I'd assume that Sombra will be out at that stage or will be out just after the con. I think they'll be talking about new game types, new maps, the new hero they also have in the works. I'd like to see if they have any PvE plans because I found the Halloween Brawl to be really quite fun indeed. Next, Diablo 3, well, it's got a 45-minute 20th anniversary panel. Hopefully that announces something big. I wouldn't hold out hope, though. It's amazing to see how they did so much right with Reaper of Souls, and they regained so much respect with people after the launch of the vanilla Diablo 3, and then they just failed to capitalize on it with more new core content. I think that most casual fans want to play Act 6 and Act 7 and Act 8. They want more beefed out content, not just running through Greater Rifts all the time. Reaper of Souls was nice and the system changes were great, but let's be real, Act 5 was really sparse. And yeah, it's crazy to me that Diablo 3 hasn't had maybe, every 1.5 years a new expansion, because you do a new act, new content, new story. I'm not saying it's simple, but I think that's something that Diablo fans, or at least the casual Diablo fans, would have liked, and I suspect there are quite a few, or quite a lot more sort of casual fans who just want to go in there and have a fun little, Diablo game and then be done with it and pick up the next one in a year. I think there's far more people like that than there are people who want to do Greater Rifts every single season. But anyway, Starcraft 2 actually has an hour-long panel called The Foundation for the Future. So with the main Starcraft trilogy being complete, I'm very, very keen to see how Starcraft continues to exist. Gameplay-wise, it's my favorite Blizzard game overall. Yep, I enjoy its gameplay more than Overwatch and more than World of Warcraft, but it's definitely a game that's kind of got its own niche for me, and it wouldn't really replace either Overwatch or World of Warcraft, but I absolutely love Starcraft, and yeah, I hope that that's a franchise that keeps on going and not something that they just sort of leave to wither away over the next decade. Now that really wraps up the good stuff for day one. The rest of it's smaller panels in esports. Now I'm actually really excited for some of those. There's a Blizzard engineering panel and there's an art panel that both applies to the other work that I do quite well, so I'm really keen to see if they have any cool stuff or interesting stuff or maybe any time savers, that we could sort of apply to what we're doing. Next, day 2 has 3 Warcraft panels, so one of them is the Legion Design Retrospective. I'm sure that'll be kind of interesting hearing about the how the game being live has just affected their plans, or maybe they're, changed their thoughts on some of their systems. Hopefully they talk a bit about the legendaries there. I think I'd be keen to see what their reaction to players' reaction to those has actually been. Then there's an in-game cutscene panel, which I'm really interested to see because, I do a lot of video production, so seeing that process will be really cool. And then finally, a Q&A. I wish they wouldn't bother with these Q&As at BlizzCon, or at least I hope they would pre-screen the questions. Now, when you pre-screen questions, I guess technically it's more safe for the developers, but, if they want to make some sort of pseudo-announcement or properly talk about things that's on their agenda, that's what pre-screen questions allows them to do. Let's be real, the BlizzCon Q&As almost always suck. Pretty much, it's just terrible, cringy questions. Then the red shirt guy, he appears, owns the stage, and, confuses Metzen and makes Metzen realize, shit, he's forgotten his own lore. But, generally these BlizzCon Q&As, they have a few fun moments and a few memorable things, but they're not that good overall, so I wish they would maybe take a different path with that. Really, most of day 2 is just niche panels, esports, and then Q&As. Now, there's no major gaps in the schedule that could fill a large panel currently, or panels that look like they could be a particularly ginormous announcement past the What's Next panels for each game. They're also running 5 tournaments overall, which I think is a pretty good reflection of their company-wide commitment to esports. Of course, Activision Blizzard did purchase MLG. I'm actually a little bit more interested in the WoW stuff now. I watched the EU regionals, and they've really made massive leaps in terms of their casting, in terms of the UI. I think Warcraft PvP is a lot more watchable now than it has been in the past, though I do think that World of Warcraft is inherently esports unfriendly because it does rely on so much meta knowledge and things that don't have a clear in-game representation past understanding what a specific spell effect on a character actually does, and it doesn't have a League of Legends sized player base to kind of get around that meta knowledge hurdle. But for the sizable audience that does exist, I think it can actually be a pretty good watch. And that's really it for this video. I think BlizzCon looks like a standard affair. We'll probably see some nice, satisfying announcements, but I don't think we'll have a BlizzCon 2014 where some completely new IP is just dropped on us. But hey, maybe whatever Tom Chilton is doing will come to fruition in 2 or 3 years, and that's when our next absolutely, crazy BlizzCon appears, where we find out some new Blizzard IP. But that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you think about all the topics that were there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.